So in terms of what's on our agenda today, we've got some really interesting speakers. Rose and I have been kind of working hard to kind of bring this to you today. If you do need or you have any feedback, then please feel free to drop us a line. So on today's agenda, we've got topics around apprenticeships, really timely the GP contractual changes, and there's also a session on menopause in the workplace, which we know you found the other menopause sessions really beneficial. And there's going to be a general workforce update, and if you can stay to the end, we'd really appreciate it, because we'd like to present to you kind of how we'd like these forums to change, and we really would like your influence in that to make sure that we're delivering and it's on point to kind of to your needs. So contact numbers for everybody that's on the call today. So if you have any, you want to reach out to them, then please do. We will be sharing the slides after the event as well. So all the information will be available to you. But please feel free to put questions in the chat, and we'll do our best to respond, or the speakers will pick up with you. So I'm going to hand over very swiftly to Hilary. Welcome, Hilary.
Oh, hi, you're a bit ahead of time, so we'll have to call Josie in, because Josie's doing part of the presentation as well. So just let me call Josie in.
Oh, no,
I think we've got Gemma first, Kerry, I think.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's
No
Hilary, there you go. Gemma,
Yeah.
apologies. It's a good job Rosie's here. So over to Gemma.
Thank you. I'm just going to try and share some slides, so just bear with me one moment while I do this. Right, is that visible for everybody? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for having me. So my name is Gemma Hall. I'm the Apprenticeships Relationship Manager working in the National Talent for Care team at Health Education England. I cover the North West regions. There are 6 more of me all across the country, and we help support employers in the implementation of apprenticeships and maximising the use of apprenticeships. And a lot of the work we do is at scale, so a lot of collaborative, strategic work around apprenticeships. So what I'm going to talk about today is a project we have on the working currently across primary care and social care in the Northwest. So it's being run as a pilot, it's not a national project. So I'm just going to take you through all of that, what the vision is and where we are, and then really just explain to you how you can get involved if you want to, and just make sure you're aware of the opportunities that are hopefully coming in the future. So we have started on this work quite a while ago. When I first started in post, the initial conversations around primary care and social care were that apprenticeship implementation was quite hard to do. There were lots of challenges that employers were facing, and a lot of the implementation was sometimes quite sporadic, not necessarily as planned as we'd like to see, and in most areas not really linked to workforce planning, which is where we can really see the benefits of utilising apprenticeships for workforce development. So we decided as a region, so across all the training hubs across primary care, to work together collaboratively to really look at a supported and proactive approach to apprenticeship implementation. So this is where we work together to look at ensuring we have got quality provision, streamlined apprenticeship provision that is not just an off-the-shelf package, it's a bespoke provision for primary care and social care. And how we do that is procure the apprenticeships we want. So we're just currently in the procurement phase now. So we worked really closely with the training hubs and any employers that we could manage to get hold of to pull together employer needs in terms of what those apprenticeships need to look like and the bespoke content that we needed to see, and across all of the occupations that we wanted to be able to ensure apprenticeship provision was available for. So we have the procurement currently live, so we've been doing some bid scoring. We'll probably open up the procurement again to get some more providers, and the idea is that those providers who will bid for the apprenticeship provision will be agreeing to quite a number of asks that we have around the quality, the delivery, the content, and ultimately working really closely with us in making sure that the output and the apprenticeships that are then released to primary care and social care are really fit for purpose and do cover everything that we want. So we'll be looking at what we call implementation at scale. So we'll be looking at working collaboratively across the Northwest with primary care practices, social care organisations, through the support from the training hubs and Health Education England infrastructure that we have, to make sure that we've got really planned apprenticeship starts happening, all coordinated. We've got viable cohorts, so we've not got apprenticeship starts not happening because we've got programs that can't run. We're able to make sure that all employers are fully supported from start to finish. They know their responsibilities, what they're committing to, full details around the apprenticeship provision, and importantly that they are fully supported in making sure they can access any funding that is available for any particular apprenticeship, and also accessing their levy transfers or co-investment, and are fully supported through setting that up as well. So it's a really proactive, very collaborative, supportive process that we're looking at implementing. The idea then is that we'll see increased apprenticeship starts. We can support employers where needed in terms of what provision is the most suitable, and making sure that they've got the support around workforce planning if needed, and making sure they're really looking at what particular occupations are the most needed in their organisations. And the apprenticeship standards that will be used will be those ones that have been procured, so the ultimate quality that we want to see in the delivery. The support infrastructure that we have in the Northwest is quite vast now, so we've got lots of networks set up and organisations that are able to support employers. So not just the training hubs, we've got our widening participation team in the Northwest, and that team are they cover a number of things. They do a lot of work around things like pre-employment and widening participation activities, but they also provide the apprenticeship levy transfer service. So this is where small employers who can't access levy funding in terms of a funding, a levy fund of their own, they will connect them with larger employers who will gift that levy funding, so that small practices are able to start apprentices. If those levy transfers can't be sought, then they will support the practices in doing what's called a co-investment. So that process is fully supported from start to finish. The connections, how to use the service is all done. So it's not a practice having to go out on their own and try and sort it out. And we've seen some really good successes in that as well. So in terms of the procurement, it's about quality, it's employer-led, it's collaborative. We're looking at specific needs that employers have in terms of delivery, and these are all very different depending on the apprenticeship standards. We really push for added value. We don't just accept an off-the-shelf package. We get as much out of that levy funding as we can possibly get. All of the contracts and contract management is done through our procurement partner, Salisbury. So through HEE, we always use Salisbury as our procurement partner for apprenticeships. So they're very experienced in that area, and we facilitate that. And it means that the contracts that employers are signing for the apprenticeships are fully protected under NHS terms and conditions. They're not signing any apprenticeship provider contracts where we can see some very scary punitive clauses sometimes slipped in there, and that end up causing us great grief in the future. So it's a fully protected process. And in terms of the implementation, because it's fully supported through the training hubs and HEE, it means that it's a really supported process, so employers have the necessary support that's needed. So we've been working with training hubs and employers to really identify those needs. We've developed the tender specification, which is quite meaty, so it's got lots of stuff in there. We've been doing the bid scoring, which has taken us a little while, but it's been a really valuable experience. And like I said, we're likely to hold that, to open that up again to get some more providers. It's not about limiting the number of providers. We want to have a really good quality set of providers to choose from. It's about making sure that those providers that are on that framework are really good quality and do what we want. And then we'll be having task and finish groups with providers and employers in making sure that all of that bespoke content that we want to see and the delivery that's streamlined across the Northwest actually happens, and it does meet the requirements of that tender specification. So in terms of where we are now, infrastructure-wise, we have a primary care and social care apprenticeships group in the Northwest, which has been running for a while now, and that's the process by which, or the group by which we'll be making sure all this implementation happens. So we'll be fully coordinated from that point. We work with our Skills for Care and colleagues, as well as our HEE social care workforce leads. So we've brought in Skills for Care and social care colleagues to the partnership working, because we know that primary care and social care do need to work very closely together. We offer apprenticeship information webinars. These webinars are free. We run them once a month, and these are for any employers in any organisation, but primarily we run them at social care and primary care to make sure that employers are fully understand how apprenticeships work, what their responsibilities are, any of the pitfalls they need to be aware of, all of the things they need to do to prepare, so that we haven't got any apprenticeship, any employers signing people up to apprenticeships and then been a bit shocked, not quite understanding what's going to happen. So they are free every month, repeated for people to access. Like I said, we've got the Northwest Widening Participation Team who offer that fully supported labour transfer service. And we also work with our specialist teams in HE as well. So we work very closely with people like our nursing teams to make sure we can bring in that support for employers where needed and make sure we've got the necessary funding available and access to that funding. AHP teams, healthcare science leads. So wherever we need any support from the specialist clinicians, we can bring that in as well. And I work really closely with the Association of Colleges and HEIs across the Northwest. So we make sure that any needs from employers, regardless of which area they're coming from, are fed back into those provider markets. And as a national team, we work really closely with ESFA, Ofsted and DFE. And this enables us to make sure that all our advice, guidance and resources are clear and very much fit for purpose for both primary care and secondary care. So on our HASO website, there's a huge amount of information on there all around apprenticeships that's specific to health and care and is always kept up to date. We get a lot of data as well. So from the ESFA, we get data around apprenticeships. So we're able to track the sort of trends around apprenticeship provision starts. And that really helps us in looking at improvement planning and action. And we're certainly looking at improvement planning and action in that primary care and social care apprenticeships group that we have running across the Northwest. And I think, and that's it in terms of where we are. So this is our website. So if you haven't seen it or haven't heard of it, it's the website that we run with Skills for Health. It has all of our expertise in there in terms of apprenticeships expertise. So this is definitely the sort of one-stop shop we'd direct you to if you are interested in learning more about apprenticeships. We know that the information on there is completely accurate, and it's got lots of really helpful infographics and guidance for you as well. So you're not having to read really detailed big documents. It should hopefully make things a lot easier to navigate as the world of apprenticeships is ever changing and does get more complex, it seems. Any questions on that? I feel like I've thrown a lot of information at you in a very short space of time, so I'm sure you might feel a bit overwhelmed. But if anybody's got any questions, I'm more than happy to answer. No. Well, if it might, I'll share the slides with Rose so that she can circulate them if you want to. My contact details are on there. And as things progress, I'm more than happy to provide you with updates as we sort of move through this piece of work. And certainly once we have provision available and we've got cohort starting and opportunities available, we'll make sure they're shared with you so that you can take a look at the offer and see if it is something that you think would be suitable for your organisation. And we can help support that.
Gemma, it's Kerry. Can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
So there is a non-clinical workforce group that's actually looking at entry roles into general practice in the first instance and that career pathway. So senior receptionist, kind of like deputy practice manager and practice manager. I just wondered whether we could extend the invite to you to participate in that programme, because there's two task and finish groups at the moment, and one of the task and finish groups is really looking at what's available out there, and I think your input would be really valuable.
Yeah, I'd love to. There's some really good opportunities for non-clinical apprenticeships, which would, I think, be really suitable. You've got business administration, you've got customer service, which can be very much tailored towards your kind of reception duties, things like that. There's project management, there's the team leader, so there's leadership and management. So there's definitely a really good range of non-clinical apprenticeships, and they're ones that we will be including in this project as well. So we are looking at so it would be really good to tie up the task and finish group in this work to make sure that we are sort of really representing what you need.
Fantastic. We'll make sure the invite is extended to you then. Thank you.
Okay, well, if I've got no more questions from anybody, I'm going to get off if that's okay. So thank you for having me. I've got another meeting to get to, but do get in touch if you need anything.
All right, fantastic. Perfect timing as well. Look at that, 15 minutes past.
Take care, see you all soon.
Thank you, Gemma. Okay, so now, Hilary, after I gave you a slight heart attack, it's because your information was on my slide deck. So now handing over to Hilary and Joseph.
Right, okay, I'm going to have to. I think Josie hasn't quite joined us as yet. I've sent her a message because she's in another meeting. So as soon as she joins us, I'll add her in. But I'd like to do is just sort of share the presentation that we've got now. So just give me a moment while I pull that up. Right, okay, so is that sharing?
No, we can't see that.
Let's try again.
Do you want us to share your slides for you, Hilary, if you're having any
Just hopefully. Right, for some reason it doesn't want to do it. Right, if you wouldn't mind, that'd be a great help. Do you know, I tried this out yesterday and it worked fine. It just always seems to happen when you sort of go live, doesn't it? Just that.
Genuinely, there were some issues with Teams yesterday, and it's probably crept into today, hasn't it? Rose, are you sharing? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just opening them. Sorry, mine is also being slow. Right, bear with me. Okay.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. Right,
let me know when you want me to move on. Okay.
Brilliant. Right, okay, so I'm Hilary Craig, and for those who don't know me, I'm a primary care manager with the Greater Manchester Partnership. And I'm sure you know Josie, who will be joining us shortly, but she's one of our senior finance managers. So we're invited to talk to you today about the GP contractual changes, and as you'll see together, we put together quite a big slide pack. Now, I do promise we're not going to go through every slide because I think there's about 43 or 44 in there. But I was hoping it would be a really useful resource because we think what we put all the so if you move on to the contents page, you'll see that we put in hopefully changes to the GP contract and also the PCN ones, which I'm not planning to go through today. But what we are going to do is just concentrate on some key slides. And I know certainly I'm involved quite a lot with responding to sort of complaints and issues we have from practice. And I know there were some sort of hot topics there that keep sort of recurring. So they're the ones we're probably going to concentrate on. So I was going to ask Josie to do her finance slides, but as she's not here, then I think maybe we will move on to. So if we could start off on slide 5. So I think really it's just what the sort of main focus is this year. So obviously it's back now to sort of business as usual and trying to concentrate on, I think there's three key areas, as well as obviously continuing with the COVID vaccination programme. But I think I would probably say it's access, I think is the top priority. And that's access in all its forms. So that's sort of face-to-face online consultations, sort of online access for patients as well, and sort of some of the digital changes. Quite a lot of things were put on hold during COVID, and now some of those things are now starting to be sort of reintroduced again. So I think it's probably really quite difficult for practices out there now because there's just so much. There's the new stuff, and then there's the stuff that's been sort of put on hold and is now sort of coming back as main sort of focus. So I think I'm sure our general practices are really feeling the heat in terms of sort of dealing with not just the normal sort of demand, but the backlog of demand as well. So Josie, I don't know if you want us to go back and do your finance slides, if that'd be helpful, because I think you have to go back into another meeting.
Yes, apologies for that. I'm in a national call. So I'm Josie Russell, I'm the Senior Finance Manager at their partnership. So apologies, I'm running a little bit late. I'm doing just a quick stop off. So yes, thanks Hilary. If you just go back to the finance slides. Okay, so it's just really to pull together just a summary of the GP contract changes for 22-23, and just to let everybody know, it is all published on the NHS England website, and there are a number of resources and documents available to practice managers and to GP practices. One of the most beneficial things I think nationally they've produced over the years is a national document called the Ready Reckoner. And the Ready Reckoner aims to kind of forecast GP's income for the year by putting in your list size and bringing in together all those national sources of income. And I do feel it's really useful. And I have got a reference to that Ready Reckoner. And I want to say slide 23, Hilary, is that correct? So it's just going there, just so you know. and there's a number of good, useful links. And there's one there. Yes, if you see the key guidance and references, there's an update to the GP contract agreement, the financial implications. There's a practice and PCN income ready retina, and also the technical guidance about implementing the contract changes, which gives full details of the contract changes and all the services and the rates paid. I've also provided some other useful references, such as the enhanced service specification for weight management and the statement of fees and entitlements for 22-23. And that is the real kind of nuts and bolts of the GP contract, which practice managers can refer to if they're unclear about what they can claim. So if you just go back to the other slide, Hilary, if you don't mind, thank you. I've just tried to pull together a one-slide summary, because I do appreciate the GP contract is so vast and it has different parts, different elements of what we pay for. So I just want to go back to the previous slide, Hilary, the colourful one. Okay, so just in terms of the GP contract changes, so there's obviously a national global sum rate, and it's nationally agreed every year, and it's currently £99.70 per weighted patient, and equates to £94.19 after out of hours, because we know most of GP, in fact all our practices, don't deliver directly the out of hours services. They're subcontracted by currently the CCGs to provide that service. That represented a 3% increase from the GP contract from 21-22. QOF, there is a new point per average of 207.56. There was the same points were available, 635 for 22-23, and as it stands, QOF is going back to almost business as usual, i.e. there's no income protection arrangements for 2023. We've not actually seen that since 1920, so we are expecting QOF to be a normal year, so to speak. And then I've just put together a very simple table of what summarises some of the key primary care network funding in terms of additional roles, network support, clinical director, extended access, leadership and management. So anything in yellow is paid to the network, and anything in red is paid to a GP practice. And I appreciate this doesn't cover all the income streams because there's so much vast of information. There's the public health item of service fees, and there's lots of income, but I just really wanted to summarise the main income streams and what the entitlements are for 22-23, and any changes. So has anybody got any questions at all? Okay. Just thanks for everybody's time, and there are resources. Please refer to those slides, and hopefully it'll give you a signpost to some of that additional information. Thanks, Hilary.
Okay, thanks very much, Josie. Like, that was good timing, wasn't it? Like, okay, thanks, Rose. So I just would, could you then go back to slide 5 then now? So we, okay, brilliant. So as I said, before Josie joined us, just talking about what some of the sort of main sort of key things that we'll be sort of concentrating on. But I think probably the biggest challenge, I think, to practices sometimes is the digital and the online access as well, and what the arrangements are and what the requirements are, I think, really for sort of GP practices. So if you just want to move on to the next slide, please, that'd be great. So just concentrating on sort of like the online and the digital stuff. So there's been that removal of the requirement for the 25% minimum number of appointments to be available to be booked online, and it will be all directly bookable appointments that don't require triage that will need to be available online. And I understand that there is further guidance due to follow on this to describe what those appointments might be. Apologies if it's come out, I might have missed it in the wave of communications that we actually get, but once we do get that, we will obviously sort of share that with our practices. So again, online patient registration, this is a continuation for the arrangements during sort of COVID, and that's sort of now continued, and now basically the removal of the wet signatures and the need for hard copies. But we appreciate that many practices are already providing this option for patients. Okay, so we go on to the next slide, please. So I think probably this is maybe the subject that seems to cause most angst to our GP practices in terms of the digital requirements, which came in October 2021, which have now sort of been they're now high up on the agenda in terms of making sure contractually we're meeting these requirements. So all practices. I'll come back on that one. As far as I'm aware, yes, but I think there's been some of this has been required sometimes at PCN. I know we have some sort of solutions to sort of try and deal with the backlog of sort of spirometry, but I'll follow that one up and I'll come back with an official response on that one. So just in terms of the digital requirements, so all practices are required to offer an online consultation tool, a video consultation tool, secure electronic communication method, and an online facility to provide and update personal contract information. So obviously there are sort of safeguards, and there is a lot of guidance around these particular requirements of digital requirements. I think actually this might be worth a separate section to go through this. I don't know how practices would feel about that, if they would find that useful, because there's a tremendous amount of guidance to support practices with this. So if we just move on to the next slide. So talking about what they sort of offer and promote is, I mean, obviously they need to be available on the practice's website, and they need to be they should be on the sort of landing page for a website, so that it's clear for patients to actually be able to access these particular tools. In terms of what promote means, I think again we'd expect practices to be promoting these on their websites, with it, within their sort of practice leaflets, within the practice through sort of signs, and also maybe texting patients to make them aware of what these other options are available for patients to actually sort of get access to their practice. So I think there's quite a lot of detail as well about what the functionality is required to do and when this is to be available, because I think initially the plans for the online access were effectively 24/7, 365 days of the year, and I think obviously there's been some sort of callback from that, because certainly I'm aware that a lot of practices were coming back in on Monday morning. They were still having massive sort of backlog of requests, sort of online requests. So that has now changed, but effectively these online consultation tools are supposed to be available within core GP hours. I'm not sure if that is happening across the board, and we certainly have had some complaints from patients where they're not able to access an online consultation via the practice, or it's open for a sort of relatively short window. So I think this is again one of those areas that will be, I think, it's quite a change in the way practices actually operate as well. I think it's how you actually incorporate that within your sort of working day, without sort of it being. I know sometimes we've had GPs who are saying to us, well, they're doing the normal work and the face-to-face appointments and having all those sort of consultations, and then the online consultations are an additional piece of work that they're doing at the end of the day. But I mean, clearly that's not a sort of sustainable way to work. So I think there is some funding around the sort of the change management within practices to make sure that that we can actually sort of deliver this without our practices falling over. I think there certainly has been a massive increase in demand and patients wanting access to GP practices, and obviously as if they're having delays in getting access to secondary care, they're waiting for operations, then we still have patients who are requiring support from within primary care, which is obviously creating a quite a big demand and strain there. So if we just move on to the next slide. So vaccine immunisations, obviously they became an essential service from 2020-21. So I think there was some sort of minor changes to some of the sort of specifications which are summarised on that particular slide. Would you like to move on to the next slide? Again, subject access requests, patient registration, weight management. Again, there's been continuation of that funding for an additional year to reflect the workload. Patient registration, again, I think there is a national push to sort of, again, help patients register digitally and make sure they've got that functionality. And there will be some further information which we will share to you when we have that information. Weight management service, so again, it's continued to 22-23, and I think a lot of our practices have signed up to do this. And again, don't think there was much uptake last year in terms of some of the funding, but I think this year we are expecting that a lot of that funding will be sort of utilised, and practices will be offering that particular service to our patients. Okay, so the next slide. So I think Josie touched on the sort of QoF and increase in the value of the points this year. There were no major changes to QoF apart from the changes for the QI indicators. Again, real emphasis on access. So one of them is around optimising patients' access to general practice and prescription drug dependency. Again, there'll be more information coming forth on more guidance, and again, we will share that with you when we get it. Next slide, please. So I think we talked earlier about how access is the key thing, and obviously this is what we've been hearing from patients. And so again, this is around sort of supporting practices in how they can sort of improve access and make, manage the demand and capacity within their sort of practices. It's also about working with. We're starting now to sort of get that engagement with patients as well, and this will be part of not just optimising access, but also around the enhanced access. I think that's part of that same conversation, isn't it, really, in terms of, I think a lot of patients are quite confused about how to access general practice now. And I think it's about having those sort of clear communications of what that offer is to patients, and also keeping some of the really good stuff that we did develop during COVID. I mean, I think we went, certainly in terms of digital access, we've moved that agenda on quite sort of significantly. But I think it's just now sort of getting that right mix, isn't it? For some patients, online access is absolutely fantastic, and online consultations. For others, it's not necessarily the best option for them, or they may not have the technology, or they may not have the actual skills to sort of do that. So I think it's about not increasing those health inequalities. So would you like to move on to the next slide? So that's just the other sort of QI indicator. So yeah, I'm not going to go through any detail on that one. Next slide, please. So friends and family tests. So again, this has come back in again in 22-23, but you're not actually required to submit any data until quarter two. And again, some of the questions have been changed on this as well, in terms of, again, improving that engagement and trying to understand what patients need, and not necessarily making assumptions about what we think our patients need, but actually making sure that the patient's voice is heard. And again, there's links to all the sort of detailed guidance, both on some of the individual slides and in the final slide as well, where there's a whole lot of links for you. Right, next slide, please. So yeah, access to health records. Again, some changes around the requirements for deceased patients' records as well. So hopefully that should reduce some of the sort of admin burden for practices. You still are able to send off those records to PCSE for them to store them if you're sort of concerned, obviously, about storage within your practice. And then if you need them, then you can effectively call back a scanned copy of that record to make available to respond to that request for access to health records. So there have been some changes to policy guidance manual. I mean, nothing sort of major. Again, there's the link to policy guidance manual in there, and the second link actually shows the bits that have changed from anything previously. So it's quite clear what the new bit is. But I think the sort of significant bit is there's a new chapter about managing inappropriate and unacceptable and violent patient behaviour. And again, I think that's around, there certainly has been an increase. We've certainly heard that from all our practices of sort of abuse to NHS staff, sort of frontline staff. I think this was a lot of it sort of, you know, post-COVID with that sort of pandemic. I don't know if that has reduced now, whether, I don't know if practices are still experiencing that. But again, certainly that's one of the, I'm again dealing with quite a lot of complaints with patient removals, and quite often this is around patient, you know, sort of unacceptable patient behaviour. So I think it's quite useful reading that chapter, because I think that does sort of give you some additional support and sort of ammunition, and I think some really useful phrases as well that you could introduce in your sort of practice policies as well, if you want to update some of those policies to reflect that. Okay, so I'm losing my voice now, so next slide. Again, a few slides on enhanced access, but I think our sort of PCNs and practices are sort of well ahead in terms of sort of doing this work now, and the engagement work that's been involved. I know PCSE did some really useful webinars as well to help practices with, you know, how they could conduct that engagement. So I hope some of you were able to attend those. So I think the next slides are just on the enhanced access. So if you want to just move through those. Right, so again, just a summary of the key, because there's just so much information out there, just some of the key points to take away for yourselves. And I think on the next slide should have all the links to the relevant guidance. And I think there's a separate one for the PCN one, which is after the PCN section. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. I appreciate that was a lot of information to take on board. But if there are some other particular areas that you would like us to come back and talk to you about, we'd be really happy to do that. Hi, Mike.
Hello, thank you. Very good presentation, very good overview. I'm not too sure if you're the right person to ask on this, but one of the things that you were talking about there was the zero tolerance information and guidance, and certainly I've not really seen much of a change. There's less in the papers. I think that's probably a better way to put it. I think my concern though is there doesn't seem to be much on a national level for what to do with these patients, because ultimately all they're going to do is go to another practice and register there themselves. And I appreciate there's obviously violent patient schemes or iterations of words. However, ultimately that there is nothing, that they're still going to be revolving within the system. So I was wondering if you're aware of any programs that might be looked at for how to deal with these type of individuals in the long run.
Well, I think actually, Mike, I am the right person to talk to about this, because we've done quite a lot of work on this. I'm involved in, there is actually a national SAS review which I've been involved in, and we are sort of doing some work. So I appreciate that the SAS is when they've gone beyond that next step, so they've gone to that, you know. But as part of that sort of working group, we have talked about what we could do to support not just the SAS practice, but other practices, to basically stop patients getting to that stage where, you know, they're escalating to that fund. And I think there is some work that we could do. As I'm certainly happy to have that conversation with Kerry, and that is part of our work stream. And certainly, as I say, I have dealt with a lot of complaints about, you know, sort of complaints about patients sort of being removed, and I think there is more we can do to sort of try and support practices with managing really difficult patients. It's a really difficult thing to do, especially when you're extremely busy and you've got a patient who's ranting on your front desk. So I do appreciate that. I've worked front facing, so yeah, I do appreciate how difficult it can be. So I think there is something we can do to try and support practices, and that is very high on my agenda.
Brilliant.
So I'm happy to put that one.
I think because obviously what the "If I Die, if it'll be your fault" campaign that the IGPM obviously put through is there's a difference between rants and basic abuse, whether it's to do with people waiting outside surgeries after close and dark, and in many respects these are sort of police matters, and it's how we can better work with those services as well to protect not only our staff but also the other patients who are registered in the practices as well. Because obviously I've been involved in a few talks myself as well, and that you can go to the extent of having closed doors, which sort of had to have an IPC guidance throughout the pandemic, but that's not practical. You need your practice to be inviting to patients to feel it's a safe place as well. So any help moving forward would be much appreciated, but I appreciate it's a really difficult conversation to sort of get involved in.
One piece of advice I would give you, and I think actually make contact with your community policing team. I would certainly recommend that for practices as well. So if you've got those contacts, you've got those personal names, and if they understand, because sometimes there are certain, you have to say things in the right way to get the right response from the police sometimes. So I think that is certainly something that I would recommend to you, and that is, we've talked to the national, they do have sort of security experts, so that we're starting to have those conversations. I appreciate it's probably taking longer than I would have liked it to take, but I think there is much more we can do to support practices with that.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there are any other questions, but as I say, if anyone thinks of anything afterwards, quietly put it in the chat, and we can pick that up.
Yeah,
okay, thank you.
Hilary, I definitely think there's some merit in, I know that was a whistle-top tour and there's absolutely tons going on. There might be some merit in inviting you back to concentrate specifically on some topics like the SAS scheme and stuff, and if you're open to that, I'm sure the group would.
I'm certainly open to that, and I think some of the digital stuff as well, because there's a lot of information going out. So whether it's in this form or whether we do something via the training, we could do something via that way. So I'm really happy to do that and support that.
Fantastic, thanks very much. Thanks, Hilary. Okay, so I believe we've now got Michelle. I was going to say, is Michelle with us? And there she is, she appears.
Hi,
Michelle,
good afternoon. Hello, thanks for that. Good afternoon, everyone. So I think Rosie's kindly going to share my slides for me.
I am.
Thank you very much.
Bear with me.
Perfect. So my name is Michelle Maloney. I'm one of the project managers with the partnership, and was asked to come along today to just do a brief session around menopause awareness and impacting on the workplace. So I'm not a clinician. I've done some awareness training, and I'm just sharing the information with yourselves. So just can move on to the next slide, please, Rose. Thanks. Just to highlight what we're going to do today is we're going to look at a video. We're going to watch highlights the signs and the symptoms, what menopause is, when and why it happens. We're going to look at some support and reasonable adjustments that can be made for staff, and signpost where some more information will be available. So we can move on to the next slide, please. Thanks. Okay, so why do we need to talk about menopause? More importantly, why do we need to talk about it in our workplace? Menopause is a stage in every woman's life and is usually defined as when a woman has not had a period for 12 consecutive months. The following day is classed as menopause. The time leading up to menopause is classed as perimenopause, and the time after menopause is classed as postmenopause. So here is an overview of 4 compelling reasons why we need to speak more openly about it. The demographic cases, menopausal women are the fastest growing workforce within the UK, with over 4.4 million women aged over 50 working in the UK. And according to the Faculty of Occupational Medicine, nearly 8 out of 10 menopausal women are in work. One quite shocking statistic from the research is that 1 in 4 women consider leaving work because of menopausal symptoms. And if we lost a quarter of our female workforce aged between 40 and 60, we couldn't imagine what that would do to our health and social care workforce in particular, as we are a female-dominated workforce. So it's about providing that culture where women feel safe and supported. Business case for that, the estimated cost of replacing an employee is around 30k. It would reduce absenteeism, reduce presenteeism, and women dragging themselves in when they're not feeling fully focused and you know, they're trying to hide the symptoms and what's showing up for them. And you know, it isn't sustainable. Can't get my S's out today for some reason. To, you know, for that to carry on over a sustained period of time. We also have a social responsibility. It is the right thing to do. We should be supporting our colleagues in work, and we should be enabling our colleagues to perform and to be at their best. And then finally, a legal case, which, you know, we do have a legal responsibility to provide for menopausal women. We need to be aware of the legal framework under the equality legislation, in particular around gender, age and disability. Slide 3, please. And I think that's the video, Rose. If you could just play that. It's got my lovely voiceover as well.
No worries, bear with me. This is me. I need to remember to turn on the sound.
Yeah.
I always forget to do that.
Me too.
Make it bigger. That is it. Okay, let me know if you can hear this.
Yep. Thanks, Rose.
Perfect.
The Greater Manchester Wellbeing Toolkit was co-designed with colleagues from across the Greater Manchester system. It is packed with practical tools and guidance to help you to look after yourself and support those around you as a peer, team leader or line manager. The toolkit also offers an opportunity to practice having good conversations, as well as delivers a series of insight into sessions across different themes that have been flagged up, such as hybrid working, menopause, LGBTQ health inequalities, musculoskeletal and mindfulness. In this short video, we will be exploring menopause awareness, giving insight into symptoms and how it affects women in the workplace, and how we can support colleagues and line managers to start the conversations and signpost to the help that is available. Menopause, it's always been around. Today, on average, women reach menopause at around 51 years old, and many women work until their late 60s. Around 3.5 million women aged over 51 years are currently employed in the UK. 8 out of 10 menopausal women are in work. This is a stage in every woman's life. It's not always an easy transition. 3 out of 4 women have menopausal symptoms. 1 in 4 have serious symptoms. How does this affect women in work? The most common symptoms are poor concentration, brain fog, tiredness, feeling low, depressed, low confidence, and hot flushes. 45% said menopausal symptoms have a negative impact on work. 47% who have needed to take time off due to menopausal symptoms said they would not tell their employer. 1 in 4 women consider leaving work because of menopause. Imagine if we lost a quarter of our female workforce aged 40 to 60, what would that do? By talking about it more openly, no more taboo, and with the right help and support, we can improve that. And it's not just something women need to know about, everyone does. Whether it's you personally, if you're supporting your partner, friend, family member, work colleague, or if you're a line manager. Menopause is a stage in every woman's life, and usually defined as when a woman has not had a period for 12 months. The following day is classed as menopause. Perimenopause is the time leading up to menopause, when a woman may start to notice some changes. Postmenopause is the time after menopause. When we talk about menopausal women, we mean those in perimenopause or postmenopause. Menopause age usually happens between 40 to 55, but can occur up to mid-60s. It can also occur earlier. Naturally, 5 in 100 women menopause between 40 to 45. And in Britain, 110,000 women aged between 12 to 40 are affected by premature ovarian insufficiency. Menopause can also happen early due to surgery such as hysterectomy and certain types of cancer treatments such as chemotherapy. Our hormone levels change throughout our lives. The main ones which have an impact on menopause are estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Estrogen nourishes the tissues of the body, regulates bone turnover and cholesterol, as well as keeping the liver and heart healthy. Progesterone boosts feelings of calmness, aids sleep, and can help improve mood with blood sugar levels. Testosterone increases motivation and optimism, helps women to feel brighter and more assertive, increases bone density, and boosts sex drive. During menopause, these hormones can be out of balance. Estrogen levels fluctuate and progesterone levels decline, which is when a woman may start to notice symptoms. Symptoms of menopause can vary from person to person. There are a wide range from physical to psychological, such as low mood, brain fog, hot flushes, fatigue, itchy skin, poor sleep, and anxiety. Every woman is different, and some don't experience any major changes at all. Others will notice some symptoms, and 1 in 4 will experience serious symptoms. Symptoms, on average, last 4 to 8 years. Symptoms can be managed in several ways. A woman may choose to go to their GP or medical practitioner, who will use the NICE guidelines to determine the treatments they will be able to offer. This includes hormone replacement therapy, HRT, which can be administered by tablet, patch, or gel. A GP can advise on the safety and effectiveness of HRT, if it's a good idea. Go along prepared with a history of your menstrual cycle and symptoms and for how long. Others choose a more natural approach to using complementary therapies or herbal therapies, including St. John's wort, red clover, and milk thistle. Always choose a qualified herbalist or nutritional therapist for advice. Lifestyle changes can be beneficial, both during and post-menopause. Introducing a healthier diet, quitting smoking, reducing alcohol, taking up some kind of physical activity, and introducing vitamins such as calcium and vitamin D may be helpful to mitigate some symptoms. Post-menopause health is important too. It's not just about things during the transition. Consider things like osteoporosis, cholesterol, and heart disease. A GP can advise on this too. The most important thing is to understand what menopause is and choosing the right approach for you, managing symptoms and your longer-term health. Women struggling with menopausal symptoms should not feel afraid to reach out for help and support from medical practitioners, family, friends, work colleagues, wellbeing champions, line managers, and HR. Ask about menopause guidance or policy within your organisation. The Greater Manchester Health and Wellbeing Toolkit is packed with helpful resources and information about menopause. It's important for everyone to talk openly about menopause. It isn't only about women, it's about everyone. Let's talk about menopause. Thanks, Rose. We can move on to the next slide, please.
Sure, no problem.
So the next one is around support for colleagues. Oh, thank you. Even my Wigan accent.
Do you want the next one?
Yes, please.
Sorry, I've clicked it. Is it? Oh.
Ah, there we go. It's on now,
Okay.
Rose. Thank you. Yeah. Just go back one, I think. It's support, I think, for colleagues. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So, you know, if there are colleagues that you're working alongside who you are supporting with these kinds of symptoms, then, you know, it's always recommended that they go along to the GP, that they speak to the line manager and see, you know, if there's any adjustments that can be made to help support them within the workplace. The Employee Assistant Programme is provided by an external organisation if people don't feel comfortable talking to someone within work about it. Totally confidential and is accessible. It often gives kind of useful advice around counselling or any other issues that may be affecting work or home life. And again, just some of those reasonable adjustments within the workplace, you know, working patterns for people and things like that, and looking at potential options really. Occupational health is always on hand, again, to support some of those adjustments that may be implemented. And, you know, just exploring those different kinds of sources of support really. Next slide, please, Rose. So just some examples of those reasonable adjustments really. If people are having, if women are having hot flushes in work, you know, are the fans available? Is the considerations and adjustments that can be made with uniforms and dress code and things? Staff who report around having difficulty sleeping and, you know, reviewing start and finish times, take that into consideration and look at your flexible working policy around that. Again, flexible working when it comes to the tiredness and fatigue, ensuring that staff have got time to take a break during the day and that there is somewhere comfortable where they can kind of go and recover and take a breather, have the lunch breaks and things like that. Have things on hand for staff if they've got, you know, fluctuating or heavy periods, having the amenities available within washrooms and things like that. And again, around anxiety, which often comes up with women who are experiencing menopausal symptoms, taking regular one-to-one discussions with staff and referring to counselling should they need that. But I think sometimes it's just that check-in and knowing that actually it's okay, take a moment and use some of the tools within the GM toolkit that, you know, there's loads of different things that you can signpost to and share with staff. Next slide, please, Rose. Information for colleagues and where to seek out other, you know, sources of support. Again, there's all these links are packed within the wellbeing toolkit. The Balance app is free and has got a free kind of symptom tracker in that. You know, if staff are kind of, you know, looking, they're not keeping an eye on a pattern of kind of how they're feeling and things, often by tracking symptoms and things is really helpful when they do go along to see the GP or when they do meet with the line manager and say, you know, this is showing up for me. It's been a continuing problem for however long. But I can share all of those links in a follow-up with Rosie. Next slide, please. Just a couple of do's and don'ts, really. You know your facts, talk about menopause openly, follow the processes, be flexible, be open-minded, offer support and refer on if needed, and you know what not to do. Don't make assumptions, don't shy away from conversations about menopause, don't share information, personal information without consent, and see the bigger picture, I suppose. Sometimes, you know, if you're noticing stuff about a particular staff member and it's kind of out of character for them to be behaving in that way, then kind of look at that bigger picture stuff rather thinking they're in a mood or, you know, they're not very happy. There could be other things going on, and some of these symptoms which, you know, you've seen there's a whole host of symptoms that go on for women. So having that empathy and that understanding will go a long way. And then, yeah, next slide, please. I always like to finish on a positive note, you know, and it's about changing our attitudes towards menopause. And you know, women often are at a time in their life when menopause kicks in and, you know, they've got grown-up children, care and responsibilities, and a whole host of other things going on. But you know, staying fabulous. You're very capable, knowledgeable, experienced women. So yeah, stay fabulous. And that's my whistle-stop tour of menopause awareness. Thank you, everyone. We do have some upcoming sessions as well, which I'll just pop in the chat. And we've been running these kind of awareness sessions for team leaders, colleagues and managers to just tap into, just for 45 minutes, just to raise some awareness and really trying to get some of our male colleagues on board with taking part in those sessions as well.
Michelle, there is actually a question in the chat.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, some areas don't have access to occupational health. I don't know if you, I am aware that GM were actually looking at this and scoping it out, but you might have a little bit more information.
Yeah, I think it's still work in progress at this time, but I mean there are so many other kind of options out there in terms of that menopause support, and I can pop all those other things again. Signpost, I mean, I don't work for Balance, but the information that they provide is credible. You know, it's Louise Newson, who's the leading UK specialist on menopause. She puts lots and lots of stuff in. There's loads of podcasts, there's lots of information. So, you know, if you are struggling, you know, again for patients, then yeah, it's something that I would definitely consider signposting to. Thanks for sharing the podcast as well, Rose.
Thanks, Michelle. Well,
no worries.
I'm quite sure that kind of as you're exploring other topics, we would absolutely welcome you to come back at a later date.
Oh, thanks for having me. Have a good day, everyone. Bye. Bye.
Okay, so next on the agenda, it's me giving a workforce update. But actually, before that, I'm going to ask Rose to launch some polls before we lose people. So pretty much we're working with the GM Excellence and kind of to deliver these programmes, and kind of they very helpfully have a practice manager that inputs to help shape their work and their programmes. And we were talking about kind of how we can kind of engage more people in these forums and get more uptake on what topics we should be including. So we were talking about doing some HR bite-size information, and we really wanted to get your feedback in terms of whether that would be of value to you. So Rose is just going to do a little launch on a podcast to see whether you think kind of looking at HR bite-size sessions would be beneficial. And kind of the next question is going to be, if you think that's beneficial, what topics would you like us to start with? Okay, that's great. That's really good. Thank you. And I suppose the next question is, okay, so if those HR topics, what's the real issues that you want us to address first? And we'll kind of get an expert in that's relevant for primary care to really make sure that we use the time appropriately. So is it disciplinary or kind of recruitment of staff that you would kind of be interested in? Sickness management, great. Difficult conversations. I know it I think it was the last session you did indicate for yourself, not necessarily time management. And really pleased to say that the September session is going to be delivered by Rachel Morris, who will deliver a time management specific session. So that's going to come. Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you for that. And what we will do is prioritise kind of the things that come up most on that little word cloud and make sure that we start to plan those topics throughout the next forums. Okay, and then last question from me is, we were thinking, just a thought. So we were thinking, wondering whether some facilitated breakout sessions that were peer-on-peer supported, where you might have a difficult topic that you're grappling with at the moment. Would you welcome the opportunity to talk to your peers about that? So basically the group would work through the issue together, share advice, kind of maybe somebody's got a similar situation that they've dealt with in the past. Would that kind of confidential breakout room be something, again, that you would welcome? And I suppose our ask to you would be kind of prior to the forum, if we kind of had that protected time for you, for people to kind of come forward with the things that were troubling them in terms of their practice manager role, and then obviously we could facilitate that for you. Okay. So that's really interesting. You might have that peer support network within your locality already, but not everybody does, do they? So, all right, fantastic. Thank you so much for your feedback. I mean, basically, these forums, we really want to shape them so that they deliver to your needs. There's no point us putting stuff on and you kind of think, blooming heck, what they're presenting to us here. So that's the whole aim of those polls, and I absolutely can guarantee that we will respond to your feedback. So thank you. Right, so I'm going to give you a really quick kind of couple of headlines of some stuff that's been happening in terms of workforce and recruitment, and I really hope that this helps with any pressing items that you have. I'm going to talk about the GPST3 programme that we deliver. I'm also going to give you a really quick update around the GM Workforce Connect, the skilled worker visa, the healthcare support worker offer, and the care bite-size session. So in terms of the GP school, we've got 7 GP schools, believe it or not, across Greater Manchester. And what we do is we have a rolling programme where we go to speak to the GPST3s prior to them CCTing. And basically the aim is to say to them that we want to work with them to retain as many GPs who train within our area. So I'm really pleased that actually this kind of rolling programme seems to be going from strength to strength. We absolutely know and can hang our hat on that we've retained 52 GPs across Greater Manchester. I think it's bigger than that, but that's what we can absolutely put a pin in. And so going out to the training programme seems to be working. This year, we've actually gone out to 6 of the 7 training programmes. We've just got Bolton to do this year, and we do it in partnership with the GMTH, the training pod. And the reason that we do that is because the training hub, I should say, rather than pod, deliver the fellowship programme, the GP fellowship programme. So it's really to educate the doctors really what they can access once they qualify. And it's really about raising the profile across Greater Manchester and kind of part of our retention plans. So this year we tend to do pre-COVID, we kind of went out, but because of COVID, we've only actually done one face-to-face session. And so all of the 6 out of the 6 sessions, 5 of them have been virtual. So you can imagine sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to engage, but it's great for time management. We pretty much cover what opportunities are available to them, both from a national point of view, as well as at a local level within GM. And we try to kind of give them a little bit of an overview of some wider stuff as well. So PCNs, how they're structured, kind of the ICS model, kind of what that might mean to them going forward. We also tell them about the programs that HEE have around kind of where they go if they're looking for a job, and they also have a point of contact within Greater Manchester. So really, really quite vast. And this year we absolutely know, because we also asked them, a bit like a polls that we've done with you, who of them are the international GPs, and that helps us kind of send direct support to them. So in terms of, this will be interesting to you, in terms of the people that we polled, we did 144 people that responded, and 58% of them are telling us that they want to be a salaried GP. 37% say they want to locum, and that's fine because we recognise that there is a role for our sessional locum GPs within our health economy. And actually, from a newly qualified doctor's point of view, 5% told us that they wanted to be a partner. So, but it's that, I'm hoping that salaried route is of interest to you. So when they say they want to be salaried, we say to them, right, you need to get yourself registered on GM Connect. So you will know that there's a profile set up for every single practice across Greater Manchester. If you haven't had opportunity to kind of take control of your profile, post jobs, then now's a really great time, because we've got just short of 144 people that are about to pop out in August, and 60% of them are going to be looking for a job. So what I would say is, if you're looking for a GP, get your job on GM Connect. If you need any help or support, then drop us a line and we absolutely will help you. So picking up on those international doctors, we know that we've got 7 doctors qualifying in August that are going to be looking for a practice that has a skilled worker visa. If you don't have one, why should you get one? It's quite a bureaucratic process in order to obtain one, but we're trying to take the pain out of that. So we've engaged with a solicitor, so you can access this solicitor and he'll talk you through the easiest process. And if you've got everything in place, it literally takes you 20 minutes. And that means not only do you attract those doctors that don't need a skilled worker, but you get to access those doctors that do. When they're in training, they're sponsored by HEE. Once they finish their training programme, they need a practice to sponsor them. So not only because of the work that we've done do we get to retain the doctors who trained in GM, but we're now starting to attract doctors from outside GM. So if you're interested in taking on a skilled worker status, then drop me a line. Again, I'd be happy to help you. We are reimbursing practices the cost of that to them. So what's to think about? Okay, so moving on to some of the programmes that we got available, you'll know that there's been the Healthcare Support Worker Foundation programme. That's been available for over a year and a half now, and we've actually seen over 140 people access this programme. It includes care certificate, phlebotomy, hypertension. As you can see there, I don't need to read that out. And this programme is open to everybody across Greater Manchester, and it's free. But what I'm really excited to tell you about, the feedback from this group as well as other stakeholders, is that what you don't want to happen is you don't want to wait for a cohort to start. You want to upskill your healthcare supporter with immediate effect. And the way we thought we could do that is by making the package a digital package. We're currently piloting this with Salford and Stockport. We've got 24 people on the programme. We want to do a really robust evaluation, because we feel that if we can demonstrate the value of it on the healthcare support worker programme, it will really lend itself to other programmes across Greater Manchester. So all of this is linked to the GM passport, and perhaps in a later meeting I can come back and show you what exactly that looks like. The passport includes the care certificate, the phlebotomy. There's actually a dedicated cardiovascular disease course, which is designed and delivered by an accredited provider. And for those of you that might know that person, it's Tracy Kirk. So we've been working really hard with her. There's also access to e-learning for health. So that's linked to the mandatory training. Where somebody might do it within practice, we're not asking them to repeat it. They can absolutely just submit their certificate to the passport, but it acts as a repository for them. So if you're sat here now and you're from Stockport and Salford, and you'd like a member of your team to access this, there's a really simple QR code that you can click on and you can get them to register. This programme is linked to the expansion of the training pods. So the aim is there'll be a training pod with nurse leads in every single locality, and they will, we hope, take some of the burden from your GPN in terms of supervision. So really exciting stuff that's happening for the nursing pathway at the moment. And once we've got that evaluation, we absolutely hope to expand it across Greater Manchester. Okay. I will share these slides. That gives you like a little bit of the time commitment for that digital pathway. And some of you might have heard of the CARE programme. That was extended to GPNs last year, and the evaluation has been phenomenal. The feedback has been incredible. If you'd like to learn more about this, we're holding a session on Monday that basically shares the evaluation, and it's got some videos from nurses that have participated. And the reason that I'm sharing this with you is it might be something that you reflect upon and actually think you've got some other members of your team that you'd like to access this programme. There are going to be 2 more cohorts, one in October and I think the other one's January. And the team are just finalising the comms and what that's going to look like. So yeah, come and join us on Monday. And then last from me, NHS England have developed a dedicated space for practice managers and PCN managers. So there's lots of useful information on there. It is on NHS Futures and it does require that you have a password. But as long as you've got an NHS account, you pretty much can access it. And I'd strongly recommend that you kind of access those resources. So I'm going to stop sharing. That was my whistle-top tour. Has anybody got any questions? Is there anywhere we can link just into primary care CVD course? Okay, Alison, which area are you from? Sorry,
I'm in Trafford.
You're in Trafford at the moment. So I think whilst the CVD course is linked to the digital passport. It really is great. I think kind of the expansion to include Trafford is probably going to be later on in the year. So I think we're probably looking around about October time. If it's a need for you, what I would suggest you do is you get in contact with Henrietta Bottomley, because I know Henrietta. Do you know Henrietta, the nurse lead for Trafford?
Yeah, we haven't got anything running at the moment. It's part of Trafford Council's responsibility under the NHS Health Check to provide training. We've been asking for nearly 2.5 years when the previous lady left, and still no provision has been put in place. They keep saying it's coming, but it doesn't come.
Right, that was so I'm really sorry to hear that. I do know that the workforce leads are looking at how the CPD monies for this year is being spent. So I would definitely, Karen, give Henrietta a nudge, and if you like I can put her contact details. She is your local nurse lead, so I can do that if that helps. And I'm sorry the passport's not available just yet to Trafford, but maybe
okay.
But it will be coming, definitely.
That's fine. We know Henrietta. That's fine. Thanks.
Fantastic. Okay. Anybody got any other questions for us?
There's just a question from Karen. I think it would probably be one there for Gemma about the apprenticeships with HEE. I'm assuming it's for existing staff, and is this for our existing staff or an opportunity to recruit apprentices? I would say it's opportunity for existing staff, isn't it?
Yes, so you can. Is Gemma on the call still? No.
No, I think she had to pop off, but we could always put you in touch, Karen, as well.
Yeah, and literally you can. So it can be for new and for existing staff. So if you're recruiting into a post, then I would say that as part of your advertisement, you basically say that that's the commitment you expect from that new recruit. But yeah, it's open to new and existing. As Rose has indicated, Karen, go on. So you get your hand up.
Sorry, I thought I should probably just ask in person. So I did miss the opening session, so apologies if this has been covered. Was there a secretarial course to support existing staff to become secretaries and to develop that way?
She didn't actually detail that because it was the content that she delivered was so full. But she did say that there was lots of information available, lots of apprenticeships available for admin roles. So we can certainly ask the question and see whether there's something specific around primary care secretarial.
Thank you.
So we appreciate, we're going to have a meeting in July, Practice Managers Forum. We know at the moment that there was a question raised around the difference between the nurse associate role and the GPN role and some confusion. So the nurse lead is going to be coming to that event to kind of give that clarity. She's also going to talk about fitness to practice for GPNs. So that's on the agenda at the moment. We will obviously be firming that agenda up going forward. August, we're going to take a break because hopefully you're all going to at some point take some annual leave. And then we will be returning in September, and that's when Rachel Morris is going to come for the time management. So we're really excited about that. If anybody has any suggestions around how we can kind of share this particular forum and kind of get more people involved, then please do let us know. We're open to any advice. But thank you very much for your time today. We really appreciate it. You know where Rose and I are if you do need any help or support, so please do drop us a line and we'll send the slides out.
Thanks everyone.